So we've got our clusters connected to our project on GitLab.com. This is the example we're going to be using for the rest of the demo. So I have the collector, I have the application ID, so I'm just going to make sure I copy those, and got some instruction on how to set this up in terms of if I'm using NPM or Yarn, or if I'm just using a plain HTML tag and things like that. But highly recommend taking a look at the browser SDK. And I'm just going to keep that open actually in a new tab. So let's do that. And so again, there's a lot of ways you can customize this, but specifically like for our example application, we're just going to use one that exists as an example in the browser SDK. So in this repository, you'll see that we have an example that's made in vanilla.js. So if you clone this repo, inside of it, there is a place for you to define your application ID and your collector. And then it's already going to set up Product Analytics, the SDK, and then send a page view. And it has a couple other things to kind of test things out. So let's go ahead and just jump into that example project. So I'm going to go into examples, vanilla.js, and then open that up. And then go into that index.js file that I showed earlier. Now I have one already working for a previous test of this, but looking at the information, I'm going to just copy my new application ID and as well as the new collector, and we'll be good to go there. Now, normally in the demo, it uses environment variables, so you can do it that way. But for the purpose of this demo, I'm just going to make it easy and make it very clear what we're doing here. You'll see as well, we have additional plugins. So we enable a number of different things by default in terms of error tracking, link clicking, and so on, as well as support for how you would do cookie consent or track custom events and things like that. But for now, we're going to just leave that as is. So with the application ID and the collector now correctly set up in our example application, we're going to go ahead and exit this out and then build the project and then serve it. So in the documentation, see all the different Yarn commands, but effectively we're going to build this, compile it, and then serve it over port 8080 if I'm not mistaken. So we can see here that, yes, on localhost 8080, I should be able to view this example project. So let's go ahead and do that. And so cool. I see that. Let's go ahead and open up the network request. So if I refresh the page, you can see that it's already firing an event to our collector. This is part of the page view. So anytime you view a page, based on how you set up the instrumentation, you're going to see it send out a event with this PV value for the events. This is the page view for, and a bunch of different information in terms of page title, your resolution, things like that. We can also send a couple more events in terms of just custom events, errors. You can actually identify users as well, and then refresh a couple different times, and then maybe even click a link as well that we can use for later on. So at this point, we've sent a bunch of different events we can see here. So it's good for us it's time for us to go back and look at our onboarding screen. And we can see it's changed. It used to show us instrumentation, but now that it's detected that we have sent events, we now get 2 dashboards by default that are provided by GitLab in order to understand your audience and what they're doing. So if we look, for example, at the audience dashboard, so we can see that we have 21 unique users. That's because you need to identify our users. Otherwise, we don't fingerprint them or anything like that to be able to respect privacy and such. But we can start to see some information here in terms of daily active users and over time, information about their session. And we can see that I'm using Chrome 124. Now, looking at the behavior dashboard, we get a little bit more information in terms of the actual event level information that we're collecting. So we can see not only page views, but also total number of events. And as you set this up in your router for a UI application, for example, you'll be able to see all the different routes or all the different pages that your traffic is going through. Now, these are the built-in dashboards. We're going to walk through setting up a custom dashboard repository and actually creating custom dashboards in the next part.